Welcome to Freed on Business. He grew up in South Florida, has been in business here since the early 90s, and has closed over $3 billion in deals. He's seen it all. He always has an opinion, and he's always ready to share it. Informed, entertaining, and connected, he has his finger on the pulse of South Florida's business community. He's Jim Freed, and this is Freed on Business.
Oh, yeah, it sure is. We've got a great show for you today. Last week, I had the Tallahassee Capitol building behind me because it was all about cannabis. Today, I've got the U.S. Capitol behind me because it's all about what's going to happen in real estate after the election. We've got a great panel. We've got Tom Handler, who's going to set the table for us on taxes. We've got Nick Banks, who's going to talk about retail and technology. We've got Charles Foschini. Did I get it right, Charles?
You got it right, Jim.
High five. All right.
3 shows to get it right.
Yeah.
25 years of friendship.
Yeah, I love you, though. I love you. It was all just a prank the whole time. Charles is going to talk to us about capital markets, and we'll be joined by Casey Conway later. He's the head of the CCIM. He's the head economist for them. We're going to talk all things real estate, all things capital. It's going to be a great show. We're going to go to a quick break, hoping the Casey will call in, and then we're going to rock the world. So, guys, get your points ready. I don't expect to talk a lot this show. It's going to be all about you. Reagan, rock it. Florida's longest running business talk show, and our sponsors have been Warren Henry since July 2012. Thank you to Eric, Larry, and Warren. And when you're looking to buy or lease a car, you want to get every advantage that you can. That's why you have to check out Warren Henry. Land Rover, Range Rover, Infiniti, and Jaguar. Up in Gainesville, Nick knows they sell Audis up there. Down in the Keys, they've got everything. You want a Jeep? You get it down there. So, what do they all have in common? They're all great cars. They all come with the Warren Henry advantage. I've got a list here. It's so long. Complimentary service loaner, dynamic wheel protection, gear replacement, guaranteed purchase offer, best value guarantee, 72-hour exchange. You can take 3 days to make sure you like your car. You will. So join me, my mom, and my beautiful wife, Vivian, and lots of my friends. We're all members of the Warren Henry family. You should be too. Always the best price, always the best service, always Warren Henry. Yeah, love and kindness always. When it's how I get my business, believe it or not, in the rough and tumble world of real estate, people have sometimes just had enough. They want somebody nice to deal with. They don't want the aggravation anymore. And they call me, or Charles, or Nick, or Tom. That's right. In today's world, it pays to be kind. And give me a call. I've got all kinds of great capital, bridge loans, land loans, construction loans, condo inventory loans. I've got them all. So if you're looking for creative financing, give me a call. 305-773-6300 gets you to me. I'm doing everything. I got a $100 million condo inventory loan I'm closing. So call me. Why? Because when you call me, it's always all about you.
Welcome back to Freed on Business. Connect with us on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter at Jim Freed or at Freed on Business, and on Instagram at Jim Freed1. Now, back to your host, Jim Freed.
All right. So Casey Conway, the head economist for the CCIM from Red Shoe Economics, will be calling in a second. Charles Foschini, twice in one show.
Pretty good.
Thank you. From Berkadia, he's the top capital markets guy in the Southeast. Ask anybody, they'll tell you. Avison Young, Nick Banks, senior guy in their technology committee, senior guy in their retail committee, thought leader, and Tom Handler, the thought leader on asset protection. Tom, let's start with you. Tell me what the vote means to people as far as taxes. I know we're waiting on what's going to happen in Georgia, but there still has to be some kind of reckoning coming. What do you think is coming down the road?
So let me start by saying that this election cycle was a tax lawyer's dream come true. Every time they brought up the wealth tax, I saw myself closer and closer to a private jet. So this dialogue's been very good for us. We've had the busiest fourth quarter we've had since 2008, 2009, perhaps. And a lot of it's because these proposals are really very confiscatory. So as the Democratic Party has slid a little farther to the left, the result of some of these provisions have just terrified, in general, certainly the high end of the market, but even middle America. So proposals like taking away the itemized deductions, Schedule A disappears. That's no more home mortgage deduction, no more real estate tax, no more interest, no more charitable deductions, no more miscellaneous. So teachers can't deduct, limits on their supplies. Businessmen can't deduct personal expenses for calculators, briefcases, computers. It's pretty draconian. But the big things that are driving the market, first, the wealth tax proposals terrified everybody. Those 1 in 5, 6% wealth tax proposals that came out. I think they'll have a tough time getting those through. I don't expect that to happen. But we've already got wealth taxes. They're real estate property taxes. And being from Illinois, typically in the top 3 in North America, they're incredibly expensive and paying huge, $22,000 per million of property assessed value for the luxury of owning a home you already own. That goes to places like Crook County, and my state, the most bankrupt state in the United States. So we're the highest overall in taxation, and we're the most bankrupt by a pretty good margin. So everyone has been raising taxes. The proposals to knock the highest tax bracket up to nearly 40%, proposals to turn capital gains into ordinary income for anybody over $1 million, proposals to water down itemized deductions if they're not taken away altogether. All of these things have the impact of terrifying the top 1%, scaring the top 10% significantly, and even the middle class would get hurt by some of these pretty draconian proposals.
Now, Casey, thanks for joining us. We've heard a little bit of a layout on Tom. Now we're at least in a recession. I'll be nice and say we're going to start coming out of the recession. What are some of these tax proposals going to do to our recovery? And thanks for joining, Casey. I know it was last minute.
Sure. So what was the question, Jim? What are some of the
question is, with taxes going up on everybody, how is the recovery going to be impacted?
So it's just going to accelerate what we were seeing from the 2017 Tax Act, the SALT implications. So you look at places like New York that are going to tax everything from, a package delivery tax to, my shoes were wet, I had to park my umbrella tax in the lobby. People are fed up, and businesses are saying, I'm getting out of California, I'm getting out of the Northeast, I'm coming to pro-business environments in states where their fiscal house is in order. And we're seeing that, whether you look at the companies that are piling out of California and going to Texas or the Northeast. And so, they can do, and they know the federal government's going to raise taxes under a new Biden administration. So how do I mitigate that? I go to a low tax environment, a low state, low county. So it's going to continue to see this flight of companies to pro-growth and fiscally balanced places.
I'm working on a mortgage right now for a guy who owns a pizzeria in New Mexico. He can't open. He's buying a house in Jacksonville and moving his whole operation to Jacksonville. Nick, what's the implication there? Are you seeing other entrepreneurs moving into town? You live in a tremendous place for corporate relocation. Gainesville must be seeing a lot of influx from people. What's going on there?
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of growth, and the university obviously is the big driver here, but the exhaust that comes from the university and everything that the university does from a research standpoint is really creating a lot of job growth. So we've had a very busy year, surprisingly, given what's going on in the world. We have a very healthy life science sector here, which a lot of people don't realize, but UF generates about $800 million a year in research dollars. Much of that is life science focused, and that's led to the creation of companies. We just announced the other day that we just completed a 43,000 square foot build to suit lab deal for a vaccine company that's located here. And, that's a major deal, a major capital investment, and a big job creation opportunity. So, we're pretty bullish on what's going on in Florida, North Florida in particular, and what we're seeing and just the demographics that are continuing to drive people here.
Now, Charles, Nick mentioned the V word. What are you hearing from the capital markets? Because real estate is really driven by the capital markets. They say location, but it's really cap stack, cap stack, cap stack. So what are your guys that you talk to all the time talking about capital deployment in general and then into Florida, given the trends that we're seeing from Tom, Casey, and Nick?
Yeah, sure. And, in Florida specifically, where we all call home, speaking administratively, not politically, starting with Charlie Crease, then Jeb Bush, then the last two governors, they've been very pro-business. And to Nick's point, they haven't been pro any business. They've been pro-serious business. So we've seen jobs jump back much faster across the board. We've seen much better jobs that were sustainable, even in a pandemic, medical, technological, life sciences. We started talking about some of the flight. Look who's coming to South Florida. It started anecdotally. It's become a very serious trend. When Carl Icahn, you've got Goldman Sachs. There was an article yesterday or the day before that said JP Morgan, which considered moving to Brickell and Brickell City Center Phase 2, which I was involved in the land sale at one time, are now relooking at options in Florida to have major corporate swings. And when you have one or two of those, it doesn't really affect the marketplace. When you have them come in packs, now, all of a sudden, the top guy at Goldman, if he's a little disgruntled, can look to the left, look to the right, and he doesn't have to move to New York. He's got half a dozen other places just in the last week that could reemploy him in a similar skill set. That bodes extremely well for our economy. It bodes extremely well for any of the millennials that may now be out of a job or have been sheltering in South Florida to enjoy the outdoors, waiting for their next job opportunity. They may never have to leave. They're not going to leave. And, as you build wealth over time in the working world, if you're in New York City or California or some of these extra taxation states, you whether they got their fiscal house in order or not, at every $1 million you make, you're $100,000 to $160,000 into the state and local governments. Compound that over time, that's a significant amount of money that they won't have to give away to be in Florida, Texas, Arizona, and you pick up a much better climate as a result.
Yeah, they're going to have to call Handler. Now, Casey, before we go to a quick break, you just heard about Charles talking about the jobs drift into the states that you had originally started with. You sit on a board of a REIT. You talk to a lot of big movers and shakers. Is this just a phenomena of today, or is this really going to happen? Because when you're in the early days of the pandemic, everybody thinks the world's coming to an end. It'll be, the middle of next year, we'll have a vaccine, and then everybody's going to go back to eating inside in New York and going to shows. Is that really going to happen? Or are we going to really see these places move out and go to lower cost environments?
No, I believe this is a watershed type event. And what COVID did is it really brought to the surface things that were bubbling underneath it. So remember, we went into this crisis, we had a housing affordability problem. Well, that didn't get solved in New York or California, but it's comparatively
worse
in Florida. And then the other thing it did is things like workforce and infrastructure, whether it's your ports, whether it's Brightline, whether it's access to great workforce. Companies have realized through COVID that it now has opened up that they can access affordable labor in places outside of Seattle and San Francisco and Austin and New York, and that workforce can cost less. They can access what they were having a hard time recruiting to those high expense markets. So I think this is a watershed event, much like after World War II, when the GIs came home and said, we're going to the suburbs and we're going to invent something called a mall and all the other things that we want. This is a very systemic watershed event that is not going to go back to the normal.
Well, we're going to take a quick break, and then to give everybody a heads up, I want to talk to Tom. We'll start with Tom on the next round. I'm going to talk about what you're hearing from some of the families. What are the strategies that the high net worth people are looking at, because they're going to drive a lot of the real estate investment. Then we'll play off of that. So we'll be right back. How do you like the way I tipped you off there, Tom? We'll be right back after this. Everybody start thinking. We're going to start with Tom. We're going to go around the horn. We're going to get these geniuses' opinions. And I'm not using that term lightly. These are all thought leaders I gathered together, all for your benefit here today to help you make better decisions in 2021 when the roaring 20s are going to start. Back after this. right. We are South Florida's longest running business talk show. I want to give a shout out to the first responders, the healthcare heroes, and my personal hero, my wife. Boy, what she puts up with every day. All right, now, everybody, when you're looking to buy or lease a car, you want to get every advantage that you can. That's why you have to check out Warren Henry, Land Rover, Range Rover, Infiniti, and Jaguar. Up in Gainesville, they sell Audis. Down in the Keys, they've got all the great nameplates. What do they have in common? Well, they all are great cars. They all come with the Warren Henry Advantage. That means you get complimentary service loaner, dynamic wheel protection, key replacement, guaranteed purchase offer, best value guaranteed, and the 72-hour exchange. You can take 3 days to determine whether or not you like your car. You will. I promise. Got lots of friends that buy there. My mom, my beautiful wife, Vivian, even I have gotten cars there since before the turn of the century. So join me, my friends, and my beautiful wife, Vivian. We're all members of the Warren Henry family. You should be too. Always the best service, always the best price, always Warren Henry.
This is Becca Carlson from Carlson Integrated. You know, a lot of our clients find that they can do anything, but not really everything. We are always excited to jump in and help. So whether you need another set of hands for a project or even comprehensive marketing management, our team of marketing mavens would love to have a conversation with you to see if we are the right fit. We do everything from logo and design work to email outreach and social media to writing and thought leadership. And here's a fun one. We are now offering our fabulous ebook of top 10 marketing tips on our website for free. So head over to carlsonintegrated.com and grab a copy today. And please always let us know how we can help. My email is Becca, that's BEKAH at carlsonintegrated.com. That's BEKAH at carlsonintegrated.com.
Hey, and I'm Jim Freed, and give me a call if I can help you with your capital market solution. I'm working with a lot of high net worth families right now. In fact, some of my money is coming straight out of New York in what I like to call private club deals. We've got high net worth investors that pull their capital together, take advantage of real estate opportunities that I find daily. So call me at 305-773-6300 if you need a creative solution to your capital needs. That's right. Call me, Jim Freed, because when you call me, it's always all about you.
Welcome back to Freed on Business. Connect with us on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter at Jim Freed or at Freed on Business, and on Instagram at Jim Freed1. Now, back to your host, Jim Freed.
Okay, here's one of my favorite topics, family offices and real estate. Tom Handler's the man when it comes to this. So, Tom, let's talk about that for a second, and we'll tip it off and send it to the other guys. You know, I have a lot of these families that want to get involved in real estate. They say, Jim, send me deals. I want to do this. I want to do that. But really what they really want to do is just meet other families and co-invest is what I've always seen. Very few of them really want to lead the way. Tom, are you seeing an evolution in this, that more families are bringing real estate in-house and driving hard? Or are they still trying to come together and do them in kind of a club or a group setting?
It's almost impossible to find a family office that doesn't have real estate. So a lot of the family offices got there because they have large real estate portfolios. That's their primary business. But those that made it either because a company went public, or they had a good M&A transaction, or perhaps they still have the primary business that got them the level of affluence they're at, they're doing a lot of real estate. And there's clearly been a trend toward direct and private investing. They like doing deals with each other. They like meeting each other. You know, you read Rhino's success, rhinos like to hang out with each other. And that's absolutely true of this segment of the market. And so they are absolutely pursuing real estate aggressively. And it dovetails into some of the early comments. You know, what are families doing? What they do? Well, people can vote with their feet. And so they have the ability to leave. And so when these local politicians, state and local, think, well, just raise taxes, it's like, well, if you were in a closed bubble and you couldn't leave because there was a wall surrounding your state, that would be relevant. But it's not relevant in the United States. So under Obama, more people left the country and renounced their citizenship than under every president since George Washington. was a massive exodus. Billionaires, and these aren't people worth 5 and 10 million. These are hundreds, millions, billionaires that left, and they're never coming back. But before the individuals move, they've already moved their businesses, their trusts, their family holding companies, and their investment portfolios. The individual people and families are the last to leave. And so they all go. So to your point, trusts, family holding companies are all exiting, going to low tax states with balanced budgets that tend to be a little bit more conservative versus Illinois, incredibly bankrupt, a century of blue rule. So how do you become the highest taxing and the most bankrupt? It's hard to do. And the answer is, well, we're the third most corrupt state, but Chicago's the most corrupt city for more than a decade running. So there's a way to do it if you work really hard, but it shouldn't really happen. So that taxpayer flight is a huge deal, and they're moving the real estate as well. As we speak, we're moving a family out of California, a billionaire family, a family with over $500 million in AUM is just starting the process. Last year, we moved families from Connecticut, New York, Minnesota. A UK family is leaving the UK for the same reasons. So people focus on the income tax rate, but that's not the real rate. The income tax rate looks relatively low, but we tax a huge bucket of income, and we have a very small basket of deductions, and they're both declining. So we're actually paying more tax now than we paid in the old 70% brackets. And that's kind of lost on the media. So that drives people to act. So there's a lot of estate tax planning, trying to use the lifetime exclusion while it's still here, and a lot of income tax planning going on in the next couple of weeks, because anything after January 1, 2021 is fair game to new legislation. Whatever they pass will likely be retroactive to January 1. So if you haven't made your lifetime exclusion gifts, if you haven't done the income tax planning you want to do, now is the time. People are accelerating income into this year, where it's taxed at a lower rate, and pushing deductions into the future, where state, federal, and local rates are all likely to increase.
Wow. KC, you and I have talked about this. You talk about Florida and Texas as just becoming their own countries. Please play right into Tom. Tom is going to love this. Go for it. Just talk about that for a second. Tom, you're going to love this.
So I've actually come up with a term for it. It's called Flexit. Florida and Texas just exit. It's our own form of Brexit. So people didn't think Brexit would happen, or that it could happen, and all the things that went into that, not controlling your borders, not having good tax policy, economic development, all of that drove UK to make that decision are at work in the United States. And we've got a broken system. You look at the Electoral College, you look at how the voting maps went. We're a very divided country. You take away the Northeast and the West Coast, and pretty much the rest of the country, and all the counties voted very differently. So, I think we're at a point where we could see our own form of Brexit. And Florida and Texas are two examples of a lot working, whether it's infrastructure, pro-government, low income tax, workforce, infrastructure, ports, you name it. That's what business wants. That's what wealth is attracted to. And really, I think, the Carolinas, Tennessee, Florida, all in the Southeast are major examples of that.
Wow. Now, Nick, this drives right at you because this is where your practice is. What are you seeing from a real estate evolution standpoint in the Southeast? And are you working with a lot of these high net worth families? I know there's a few in Gainesville that you work with very closely.
Yeah, I mean, the way I would characterize the impact of the current economy is it's accelerated so many things. I think population shifts are accelerating. They were already happening. It's happening at a greater rate now. From a retail perspective, we've seen a further shift towards e-commerce. I heard the other day that e-commerce is 5 years ahead of where we thought it would be right now. And so it's accelerated. And somebody made the comment earlier in the discussion that, these are systemic changes that are likely not to reverse. We've created a new threshold on a lot of these things, and I would expect the momentum to continue.
I do want to compliment you on your background. It's tremendous. Tom, I love yours too. Charles, you got to be a little more creative there. You are a handsome man, though, Charles. You very much are. So you win on that one. You win on that one.
One, I stand up for myself, and two, my firm has very strict corporate guidelines. So I'm just going with the company store on that one.
Absolutely not a problem. But flip it to you now, because you have a high net worth investor that owns your company. So, what do you think? What are you guys seeing? Do you get anything bubbling down from the Oracle himself, or what are you seeing?
So, it's interesting. And I would just say as happenstance, I followed KC as a keynote speaker on the Florida Regional CCIM convention. And I took really good notes from what he said because it made it a lot easier for me to follow him and speak to his key points. And, although the pandemic dislocated some of those points, it made very apparent and was an accelerant on many of the others. I see that as continuing. And, from my perspective, being in a corporate environment that's not publicly traded, but is privately owned by very high net worth folks, and having a lot of clients that may be institutional, because in Florida, it's fairly easy for a private guy to have an institutional asset. I do work with what other parts of the country might be thought as more middle market. The super high net worth guys that were here before are really flexing their muscle in a much bigger way. If you owned a condo, you're looking for a home. If you had a head of state of sorts working down here sort of remotely anyway, because the corporate environment was running on its own, you're now relocating those people down here or thinking seriously about it. And my expectation, and we didn't talk about the Carolinas, but I would put them in there, Alabama, what was already happening with supply, just-in-time logistics in the auto industry worldwide in some of those markets is going to be greatly accelerated. The thought of getting in a subway or some other type of mass transit in Boston, DC, New York, where, even with mass transit, it's an hour to 2 hour commute into the city. Try and drive to those markets. It's a 3-4 hour drive each way in traffic with tolls that are like a salary for most. And down here in Florida, I could walk to Brickell Avenue. It'd be a long walk, it would count as exercise, but it's 8 miles from my house. It's doable in a lot less time than a mass transit commute in some of those other cities. People are going to discover that. If you're in Delray Beach and you go to your office, you go up a flight of stairs, if that, you park undercover, but you don't have to touch any buttons. That's pretty good. So people are rediscovering the advantages of the suburbs. I wouldn't call any of South Florida suburban because it's only 13 miles from the Bay to the Glades. But we certainly have a suburban feel in terms of its office buildings. I believe there's going to be a very strong resurgence in those markets and in the interest of real serious corporate tenants, not the back office call center side of JP Morgan, but a technology and infrastructure side of JP Morgan, or the capital market side, or the asset management side. And those are real jobs that are really high paying, that's going to create transformational growth in retail and industrial and logistics and single family home supply. And, it's an exciting time to be in the Southeast. I'm glad we got here first.
Yes, indeed. Now we're going to take a break. And then I'm going to want to talk about some infrastructure. I want to talk about the infrastructure that's coming to Florida. Some of it seems to be pork barrel, but it really isn't. Casey, I'm referring to the road to nowhere. We'll talk about that. I want to talk about what everybody sees coming up for growth in the next segment. We'll talk about growth after this. Everybody, the next segment is going to be all about jobs. All about jobs. Back after this. We're having a lot of fun here today. We're South Florida's longest running business talk show. We've got some great experts on. We're talking about some fabulous ideas and concepts that we're all concerned and wondering about. And hopefully you'll be able to use what you learned today, put it to work, and make money with it coming up. I want to thank our sponsors going on. How long has it been? 9 years? 9 years. Warren Henry Automotive. When you're looking to buy or lease a car, you want to get every advantage that you can. That's why you stick with somebody like Warren Henry. Land Rover, Range Rover, Infiniti, and Jaguar. That's what they've got down here at 151st and Biscayne. Up in Gainesville, they've got a great Audi store. Down in the Keys, they've got a store that sells everything. That's where I go to get my Jeeps. Why do you buy from Warren Henry? Because not only are they great cars, but they got the Warren Henry advantage. Complimentary service loaner, dynamic wheel protection, key replacement, guaranteed purchase offer, best value guaranteed, a 72-hour exchange. You buy because they treat you like family. When you pull up, it's like coming home. I love my lady that takes care of me, May Stark, in the service lane. I know everybody there. They're great. So join me, my mom, and my beautiful wife, Vivian, all my friends. We're all members of the Warren Henry family. You should be too. Always the best service, always the best price, always Warren Henry. Actually is really important to be kind. It makes the world such a much better place and lowers your blood pressure so much. Of course, you can't always be kind, but we all have bad days. Try to make every day a good day and stay kind. Now, I'm Jim Freed, and I do commercial real estate transactions with a lot of families. I've got a lot of private capital that I'm deploying all up and down the Eastern Seaboard right now. Condo conversions, construction loans, residential, hospitality, healthcare, all the different product types, even retail for Nick. So give me a call at 305-773-6300Y, because when you call me, it is always all about you.
Welcome back to Freed on Business. Connect with us on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter at Jim Freed or at Freed on Business, and on Instagram at Jim Freed1. Now, back to your host, Jim Freed.
I touted that this segment I talked to KC about the road to nowhere, but I want to start the segment with Nick. Nick, you've had a lot of infrastructure improvements up in north central Florida. How is that impacting the ability for growth? I remember that it just never used to jump over I-75. Now there's a virtual city across the I-75.
Yeah, it's amazing what's going on, and I think you're talking about starting down in the villages and into Ocala and up into Gainesville. The amount of growth, and it has really been tremendous. I feel like every time I drive, south on I-75, you see another 1,000 homes popping up around the villages. Ocala has been a shining star from a distribution standpoint, sitting at the top of the triangle where the turnpike meets I-75. And as the I-4 corridor has gotten more and more crowded and saturated, big distribution groups have looked into Ocala. So just in the last, probably 24 months, we've seen FedEx, Advance Auto, Chewy, Amazon now. Amazon took down a 650,000 square foot building that was started as a spec building. Family Dollar did over 1 million square feet in Ocala that they just announced. So, we're seeing tremendous growth. That's leading obviously to a lot of job growth. And I think, a lot of people have moved to the state, to this part of the state. And I think what a lot of employers have realized is that they're now following talent instead of talent following jobs. That paradigm has flipped. And so that's been an interesting thing, and the top half of the state is much more affordable than the bottom part of the state. And so that's attracted some people here as well, retirees and young people. So it's been a lot of growth.
Casey, I want to talk about onshoring with you and the road to nowhere. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Last year in the Florida legislature, they approved a road that appears to go nowhere, and now it's going to be a vital north-south link to our logistics. Leave it to the Florida legislature to turn pork into steel. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, roads to nowhere or somewhere, at least you're building a road, right? I'm going to talk about the good things that you're doing on the infrastructure. You look at your ports. You've got 13 major ports and harbors. Look what's going on in Port Everglades. Look at the connectivity of that up into Winter Haven and Central Florida, and what Sean Malott has done there with the Central Florida Economic Development. Look at your Brightline project. Look at the Space Force Command site selection. Patrick Air Force Base, one of the 5 finalists. I think it's down to Patrick Air Force Base, Huntsville, and Colorado Springs, maybe the Port of San Antonio. That's all cybersecurity, but it's down to 4. These are all part of those macro things where it's a workforce, whether it's infrastructure, whether it's, political leadership to get these things done. That's what's attracting, the capital, the population, everything. It's all together. So even if you build an occasional road to nowhere, that's okay. At least you're building a road.
There you go. Now, Tom, I know that you have a number of associates that are down here in Palm Beach County. So you guys have a toehold down here, and you come down on a regular basis to service your clients in Florida. Are you noticing more and more families, large families, moving down? I mean, we just saw the Trumps look for schools. And this isn't political. I'm just talking about them as a high net worth investor at that point. So it seems like a lot of high net worth people are coming and moving down here. I'm working on a big condo where everything goes for $1,000+ a foot. They're selling those like hotcakes. So Tom, are you hearing more and more about Florida?
Absolutely. So Florida has been consistently one of the very top destinations where Midwest families tend to go. Primarily the West Coast, but all the East Coast as well. A lot in Palm Beach. So 2 of my 10 best friends in the world, one's in Coral Gables, one's in South Beach, and very high income people. And the savings on Illinois income tax alone is over $100,000 a year. That's without the real estate tax and an extra $1 a gallon for gasoline. So this trend toward taxpayer flight that really reached a level never seen before during the Obama administration, the exact same thing's going to happen under Biden is my prediction. It will accelerate. This trend will kick up into high gear, and it will continue throughout this term. The movement of family holding companies, including family limited partnerships and family businesses and family trusts in their portfolios, is being driven largely by high state taxation or corruption or unbalanced budgets or pension deficits you can never dig out of. And what happens is when they decide where to go, whether the people move there or not, these trusts, these holding companies are getting parked in the same states people are moving to. And once that capital is there, they can't put real estate, let's say someone comes from California, they can't put it back into California real estate or a California operating company, because that's going to, of course, trigger California state income tax. So it forces the money to be invested there or in some other non-taxable state, and people will tend to put it where they know and where they live or where they have a vacation home or whatever. So I believe Florida has been the number one destination out of the Midwest for quite some time, with Texas, Tennessee not being far behind. I would expect that trend to continue to escalate, and that you should be the beneficiary of a lot of capital earned elsewhere. So I would think that your infrastructure will continue to boom, because those families don't have the option of building infrastructure in the states that they made their money or resided or built their businesses, because they'll be subject to that taxation. Avoiding those contacts is a key to placing the situs of taxation or a trust or a business or a family holding company someplace other than your high tax bankrupt state.
Hey, Jimmy.
3 words for you: Longboat Key. Now, Charles, you work with a lot of high net worth investors and family offices to finance their real estate capital. What have you seen as far as their trends go? Are they looking for higher leverage? Are they seeking more low leverage as we come into this uncertain time, lower leverage being more conservative? What are some of the ways that they're seeking to take advantage of the current economy?
Yeah, I would bifurcate that 2 ways. One, they have to function within the current capital markets. And the current capital markets has been erring to the conservative side of things across the board, because while we're in this pandemic, people keep saying post-pandemic, but we're still in the pandemic. Till everyone's vaccinated and it goes the way of smallpox, we're still in the pandemic. And, lenders are being more conservative. What's different is that the high net worth investor has the capital and access to capital that they can say, wait, a 60% interest only loan, 10 years is 2.4%. I'll take that. Yeah. And they can do that. They can also look to you and me buying our first deal together and say, oh, you need 80%? We could slice right in there at 12% current. And they feel like they're buying it at their basis, not our equity in, right? Because they would have seniority to us in that example. So, this is a great wealth building moment for those that are already really wealthy. And to the extent that they're being able to compound and accelerate that by moving to a tax efficient state for either their investment or for where they're going to pay their taxes, it's pretty impressive. Berkadia is a privately held company you touched on before. we have a tremendous group of data scientists that mine relatively publicly available data, but they just assimilate it to a way where we can use it. And we take census and income tax data, and we have these. If you go from Chicago to Florida, the red arrow coming out of Illinois is unbelievable. And it's in the billions in the Northeast and the tens of billions, and from California. And the red lines going out of Florida is very indiscriminate. It's not material at all. And the same red line, green line in and out of wealth, where you're paying your taxes versus where you used to pay them, was a very strong trend pre-COVID. Now that we're in COVID, it's been accelerating, and it's not going to stop.
No, it's not. Come on. We came to Florida for a reason. There's a reason Handler Vacations in Arizona. I outed you, Tom. Sorry. And why Casey lives in Georgia, why Nick works down here, it's because it's a great place to live. Okay?
I moved down here in 1983 because the mean temperature was 78 degrees. And now with global warming and climate change, it's 79. I'll take it.
Yeah, not so bad. It looks like you got a tan, too. Listen, we're going to take a quick break. Then we're going to come back, and I'm going to ask everybody to look into the future and tell me when the Roaring 20s are going to start. I say they already have. We'll be back after this with some great information that you can use to make your life better and make a lot of cash with after this break. Thank you for sticking with me, everybody. What a great group of guests. I love you all. I tried to do it on the downstroke there for you on the downbeat. South Florida's longest running business talk show is Freed on Business. We've been around since 2008. I don't know how many years that is. I'll let Charles figure it out for me while we're on break. Now, Warren Henry's been a sponsor since July 2012. So thank you to Larry, Warren, and Eric over at Warren Henry Automotive. They got a great new store up on 151st and Biscayne. Go check it out. Look for my service person, May Stark. She's got great specials for you. Remember, when you're looking to buy or lease a car, you want to get every advantage that you can. That's why you have to check out Warren Henry. Land Rover, Range Rover, Infiniti, and Jaguar. Nick knows up in Gainesville, they've got Audi. Down in the Keys, they sell them all. Whoa, what do they all have in common besides being great cars? They all come with the Warren Henry advantage. You get complimentary service loaner, dynamic wheel protection, key replacement, guaranteed purchase offer, best value guarantee, and the 72-hour exchange. You can take 3 days to make sure you like your car. I got a secret for you. You will. Now, join me, my friends, my mom, my beautiful wife, Vivian. We're all members of the Warren Henry family. You should be too. Always the best service, always the best price, always Warren Henry.
Carlson from Carlson Integrated. You know, a lot of our clients find that they can do anything, but not really everything. We are always excited to jump in and help. So whether you need another set of hands for a project or even comprehensive marketing management, our team of marketing mavens would love to have a conversation with you to see if we are the right fit. We do everything from logo and design work to email outreach and social media to writing and thought leadership. And here's a fun one. We are now offering our fabulous ebook of top 10 marketing tips on our website for free. So head over to carlsonintegrated.com and grab a copy today. And please always let us know how we can help. My email is Becca, that's BEKAH at carlsonintegrated.com. That's BEKAH at carlsonintegrated.com.
All right, and I'm Jim Freed, and I'm wishing I had Tom Handler's library. Wow, that just looks so awesome, Tom. You're the man. But I do have access to lots of great capital. So give me a call at 305-773-6300. I can finance foreigners and homes. I can finance jumbo mortgages. I can finance bridge loans. I can finance condo inventory loans of over $100 million right now. So if you've got a creative capital need, give me a call at 305-773-6300. Why? Because when you call me, it is always all about you.
Welcome back to Freed on Business. Connect with us on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter at Jim Freed or at Freed on Business, and on Instagram at Jim Freed1. Now, back to your host, Jim Freed.
All right, welcome back to Freed on Business. It's our final segment. We've got a tremendous panel. We got Nick Banks, who is head of technology and retail at Avison Young, Tom Handler, the top asset protection attorney in the world, Charles Foschini, the top capital markets guy in South Florida. Thank you for letting me say that, Charles. It's true. You got the deal maker of the year award, didn't you?
I did. Thank you, Jim.
Go. That's my pleasure. You earned it, man. And of course, Casey Conway, the man. He knows it all. So we're back, and we're going to talk about when is the Roaring 20s going to start. As everybody knows, the pandemic of 18 and 19 came, and then we had the Roaring 20s after that. Everybody, the pent-up demand went crazy. You already got them talking about it on a lot of these conference calls I go on. I'm going to start with Charles, since he hasn't started off one of the sectors, one of the segments yet. Charles, what do you think? Is it hot now? Is it going to get hotter?
So, I would suggest that we were clicking along just fine before the pandemic, and people kept looking at the economy and the things that were happening and saying, it's been too long. It's been too long. The cycle's too long. And that's a general statement. Specifically in Florida, we've been benefiting for a while. And when I would look at the economy or stocks or any other of the metrics that I try and follow, I didn't see much fault in where we were going. And then again, speaking administratively, not politically, a lot of the red tape to get through and do things, and a lot of the fairness that the Trump administration was creating. I grew up in New Jersey in the 70s, and if he were on the Phil Donahue show, he was complaining about China and the cost of steel. 40 years later, he's doing something about it. And that is going to cause a benefit to the country over time. And that's going to exceed his administration, assuming he actually goes away in February. Right?
We don't talk politics on this show, but we do appreciate
so now we're in the pandemic, and that's almost everyone's excuse as a pundit to say, oh, we're in a recession. Now we're coming out of it. And so they're using the stock market at 30,000 plus as a base and not a high point. They're using home values in Florida, as some of those condos are eclipsing $1,000 a foot. That's happening in single family homes too. They're using that as a base and a floor of the new economy that we're in. And then you layer on top of that in the smile in the Southeast, the accelerant of folks relocating. It could be an extremely robust, quote unquote, recovery. And we may not have seen anything like that before if you happen to be located in the Southeast. If you're in the Northeast, if you're in California, which clicks along as the 6th largest GNP in the world by itself, they might get a black eye that they don't recover from for a while. It's pretty interesting to watch, and I'm really excited about it, and I'm glad I've made a career in the Southeast. It's going to benefit all of us.
I'm glad you made one here too, because I got to be your friend. KC, what do you think? Where are we in the grand scheme of things?
So early in this thing, I called and stuck with that we were going to see a W. We'd recover when the states lifted, and then we would slide back down when we found all the holes we didn't plug and maybe didn't have the vaccine. And that's what's happened. I think we're in still the slide part of the second part of the W. I think we have a very tough 4 months ahead of us. A lot of capital will be wiped out by not connecting the dots. We have, remember, the CARES bill, essentially the benefits ended the end of September. So we've got October, November, December with no help for the airlines, no more for small business, no more extended unemployment benefits that end this month. And by the time we get a new administration in place, they find the restrooms and they figure out what the hell they want to do to us. It'll be February before they pass something. So it's March. So imagine we had a bridge from March until the summer, August or September. What would this economy have looked like without any of those bridges, without $4 trillion extra from the Fed, the trillions from the CARES bill, all that type of stuff? That's what we're looking at. We have 4 or so months still on top of the 2 here of nothing. So a lot of damage, a lot of carnage. The latest numbers are 60% of all small business, 60% of restaurants, the damage to our hotels, damage to our cruise ship industry, more occupancy restrictions. I think things look really bad the next 4 to 6 months. By the time we get the vaccine, and I think the Moderna one will be easier to distribute, doesn't need to be frozen and refrigerated as much. So I'm optimistic that by the time we get to next summer, you need to have done your homework and be ready to pull the trigger. The second half of next year looks incredibly promising. I'm very optimistic about it, but it's going to be a very bifurcated recovery. It's going to be bifurcated on geography. Those states that had problems going into COVID, fiscally wrecked situations, unfunded pension liabilities, high taxes. Go to the Tax Foundation. Our good friend Todd Jones turned us all onto that. They visualize whether it's sales tax or income taxes or other kind of tax that tortures you. It's one picture's worth 1,000 words. Go look at that stuff. Go look at Visual Capitalist, another good one that Todd Jones turned us all onto. It visualizes that data, and it's going to show us. It's going to be places out west like Utah, Salt Lake, or Phoenix that do really well. Not so much maybe Denver. Still strong in Texas, but it's going to be bifurcated. We haven't factored in property and casualty insurance issues in the Gulf Coast region in Texas and Louisiana. You guys lived through that nightmare in 2005 and 6. So the bloom's going to come a little bit off Texas because of that, particularly down in Houston and New Orleans. And then the Northeast and the states, like Illinois and the that really didn't get their fiscal house in order. So geographically, it's bifurcated. Property types, it's bifurcated. You can't go wrong in industrial. The new industrial was retail. I just finished a new course, Last Mile Logistics, that I just put in the can yesterday for the CCIM Institute. That'll be free to all CCIM members starting in January that renewed. We go through this whole thing. CBRE is actually producing a new report called Retail to Industrial Conversion. So all that retail for office or telemedicine or industrial or last mile, retail, I'm very bullish on the adaptive reuse of retail. One last cautionary note. We are going to see an uptick in Chapter 9 county and city bankruptcies. We saw 74 during the Great Recession. My forecast is 100 to 150 by the time we're done next year. And so you need to be paying attention to your local government at the city and the county level to see where they are. We even have counties in suburban Atlanta that you think would be okay, and they're a fiscal mess, absolute wreck. So you need to be paying attention to that, because what is real estate worth in a city or a county that's filed Chapter 9 bankruptcy? It's not worth a whole hell of a lot. So pay attention to those. It's going to be very bifurcated. This is a time where you do your homework the next 3 months and be ready to pull the trigger. I think Florida has more of the targets that I would want to shoot at than maybe anywhere else. I put North Carolina, Utah, maybe the Port of San Antonio. San Antonio I love. And Florida is really my top places. Huntsville, Alabama, the new Space Command Center, where that goes, is going to have a huge impact. I think, it really is probably Florida, Huntsville, or maybe Colorado Springs with the retiring of NORAD out there. But a lot to be optimistic about there in Florida. And you got your fiscal house in order. And I think by summer of next year, if you're not on it, you're going to be missing the opportunity. So do your homework now.
Okay.
Hey, Jim, I tell you, it's always easier to follow Casey. He's exactly right, specific to the capital markets. If you're an industrial or multifamily, it's more conservative, but you're still getting deals done. If you're in retail, office, or hotel at the moment, it's excruciating to get something done. And what you're getting done from a leverage and cost of capital standpoint is light years away from what you could have got in February of 2020.
Well, we've only got about 5 minutes left, so I want to get with Nick, and then I want to finish up with Tom, and then give everybody a couple 30 seconds to say goodbye. So, Nick, what are you seeing in technology and retail? It looks like the guys are stealing your thunder there.
Yeah, well, look, Charles and KC hit a lot of great points. I think there's clearly some pain left to be felt for small business in particular, and but I would say that in general, that group, especially as it pertains to retail, it's a resilient group of business owners. They're used to pivoting. They're used to adapting. They've had to. E-commerce, was already here, already having an impact. It's a bigger impact now. But I have a lot of faith in that sector's resilience and their ability to pivot and adapt. But I think, look, big businesses will continue to get bigger. I'm anticipating we'll see further consolidation. We're seeing it and hearing it in our industry all day long. And with the clients that we deal with and investors, we're seeing consolidation in those groups as well. From a state perspective, one thing that we haven't really touched on, our reliance on tourism, and we really need that to come back. And so when people start traveling, Orlando has been particularly hit hard, because of the impact of tourism. So there's some pain left to endure, but I'm very bullish on where we end up. The fundamentals are all still strong, like Charles said. No reason to believe that anything other than we should just be able to pick up and continue on.
Yeah, and we talked about the tourism thing a little bit last week. Right now, agriculture is actually the number one industry in the state. And there's going to be incredible opportunities in agriculture, especially in hemp, but especially about where you are, Nick, and down here too. So we'll talk about that on another show. Tom, I'm going to hand it, no pun intended. Tom, I'm going to hand it to you to kind of wrap it up. We talked to all the experts. All of our clients are your clients. All of our clients that we work with are all high net worth investors. They're all family offices. All these real estate developers are really family offices. Ask them, they'll tell you. And so really, Tom, what's coming? Bumpy ride? Please let us know, because I really care what you have to say.
Well, I agree with some of the comments. I think we're almost clairvoyant. I think that sectors, geographically and in terms of areas of real estate, are going to do far better than others. So selecting carefully is the right thing to do. Commercial real estate, particularly offices, are going to be changed forever as a result of COVID. The trend has been smaller office size, shorter terms. I think that will accelerate. I think these bankrupt, dangerous cities are going to lose people in droves, and businesses will go with it. So they're struggling, and maybe those suburbs will pick up. So I think real estate looks fairly solid, and it has been for a century one of the four most advantageous areas of the tax code. I don't see that changing. So you've got a good shot that the built-in gain or appreciation while you're operating the property isn't going to be taxed until you sell it. And there's a good chance it'll still be capital gain at that point, unless it's a large property, in which case, under the Biden plan, you're paying capital gains at full ordinary rates. So we'll see if that goes through. So I feel pretty good about real estate in general. I think the stock market also will be relatively solid. And I'll separate the stock market quickly from the economy overall. People often confuse them. There are so many variables in the stock market that have absolutely nothing to do with the U.S. economy. You can't draw that comparison. Stock market rocked under 8 years in the last administration, and the economy was horrible. Unemployment was at record rates, but the stock market was strong. And that's largely driven by international money pouring into this country. We are perceived to be the least likely country to improperly expropriate and steal your assets. And that's why the money is flying here. They hate our regulation, they hate our divorce laws, they hate our taxes, but they know that we're not going to steal their money. So it's pouring in there. It'll continue to pour in regardless of what Biden does. I think Biden's provisions will have the same impact as Obama's. It will chill business. Trump did in one quarter what Obama didn't do in a year in terms of GDP growth. So there's just no comparison. And blacks had the highest employment in the history of the United States under Trump, whereas they were worse off after Obama's term, worse off economically, net worth, income, and unemployment. So I think we're going to see more of the same thing. I think it's going to be a rocky road ahead, but I feel like real estate and the stock market, the right sectors of real estate and the stock market should be very solid.
Tremendous. I want to thank everybody. This is where I do a little bit of personal psychology work. The way that I stay resilient is I surround myself with people that I believe in, that believe in me. And I want to thank you guys for being here today and helping me feel solid about myself and my impact on the industry and the community. Each one of you is a complete leader in your sector, a person that I admire very, very much. I wanted to say thank you today for coming in such a difficult time and producing such a great video for people to watch today and in the future so they can get a handle on what's going on from experts who are kind and not out there scaring anybody. Casey Conway, you put out great info to the CCIMs. Thank you. Tom Handler, what you do for some of my friends is amazing. I know you can't get rid of all the crazy taxes, but you can get rid of about 80% of them. High five to you, Thayer, and the rest of the guys over there. Nick, thank you so much for everything you're doing to make my second hometown a beacon. And I love that design behind you. Charles, you're just my partner in crime. You're the best. Thank you so much for being there for me. Whenever I have a question about capital markets, you're always there to be my rock. So there it is. My experts in predicting the year ahead. It's going to be a little bit rocky, but when we do this again next year, we're all going to be feeling a lot better. So say, God bless you. God bless you all. God bless you all for being my friend and for putting out positive energy to the world, which is really what it's all about. And for Tom, this part I add just for you. And God bless the United States of America.
Hear, hear.
All right, everybody, have a great week. We'll be back next week, Wednesday at noon. It's going to be my birthday show. I'm turning 60. I'm an old geezer. I want to thank everybody. I want to shout out to all the first responders, all the healthcare heroes. Thank you to Warren Henry Automotive, the NFL Alumni Association, Conway MAI, Carlson Integrated, Reagan Mendoza, Turkel Brands. Please go to our Facebook page, like our show, tell your friends, join our communities, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, website, thousands of hits. Why do I keep doing this? Because I love it. Remember, the person who wants to do something finds a way, the other finds an excuse. Now go out there and make it happen just like every one of my guests does. God bless you all. Casey, love you. Tom, love you. Charles, love you. Nick, you know how much I love you. We talk every day. God bless you. Reagan, we're out.